Welcome to the OnScript podcast, your home for world-class conversations on scripture and theology, where you get to meet some of the best in the field. Visit us at onscript.study. Say hello on Twitter at OnScriptPodcast and stop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/OnScript.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnScript podcast. This is Matt Lynch coming to you from Regent College in Vancouver. We have back, as we do often at this time of year, Dr. Ervine Sheblazm, and I know you're going to enjoy him. He's got some great insights to share with us. So thanks so much to everyone who's listening. Thanks to Jason Stark for a rapid turnaround on this. Really appreciate that. To all of you who listen, if you enjoyed this episode, or are curious about this episode, go on and give us a rating or review, be it positive or negative. We'll take it all. Thanks for your support, for those who share the word and also who support us financially. We appreciate that. Enjoy the episode. Welcome, OnScript listeners. We have back for the, who knows, 6th, 7th time, Dr. Ervine Sheblazm. Dr. Sheblazm is an accomplished scholar, scientist, and theologian, and a longtime friend of the podcast. And I can say friend at this point because he's truly become that over the years. I can recall even going through a rough time in the past year with a sickness, and I had several other issues going on. And the first person to give me a call was Ervine, who let me know that his new book was on the way, and it promised to be better than all the rest. And that really lifted me. He's the author of many works, including Faultlines in the Horizon, Feathers on the Nose, Paul's Theology of Universalism, A Life Living, his Theological Memoir, Child Rearing with the Apostle Paul, and much more, including his newest work, The Cheerful Taker, A New Economics for Pauline Christians in a Changing World, published by Sheblazm Press, 2025. Of course, Dr. Sheblazm has doctorates from prestigious online universities and runs the Center for Excellence in the Lake District of England. Dr. Sheblazm, welcome back to the show.
Welcome, Matt. Thank you for doing this. Good. It's good to see you still giving this a go. You know, it's good for you. Really impressive. I can only say that I didn't realize when I called you earlier this year that you were even ill. So that's my bad. But I've worked out now, because I've been looking at your publishing record, and you haven't published a book since 2023. Is that right? So have you been bedridden for 2 years or something?
No, just they take me a while. So.
Oh, really? Sorry about that. Okay.
Well, on that note, I'd love to hear, and I'd love for our listeners to hear a bit about your past year, what you've been up to, some of the things happening, like, the sort of picture around this new book that's come out.
I'd say let's start with a clear introduction to my process, my method. Mm-hmm. For me, the 3 pillars of good characters is theology, self-promotion, and charity. As we say here in Blighty, charity starts at home. I suppose for our American listeners, yeehaw. I say charity. You probably say charity begins on the ranch.
Something like that.
Since our last merging of the minds last April, I have discovered the 3rd pillar of good character, charity. So I've engaged with charity this year. You may ask me where I've got this from.
Yeah, so where have you gotten this from?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you, Matthew. Let us not become weary of doing good. Boom. Let's have that again. Let us not become weary of doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galdot 6:9 NIV. So, what's clearer? What's clearer than that? Should we all therefore not be into charity, into doing the charitable things? So I carpe diemed, and I went and set myself up a charity. My aim was to be a do-gooder, which I think is a really nice way of describing people who are just trying to do good charity stuff. But I came across another biblical passage that is going to be difficult, I think, for yourself and your listeners particularly, especially I assume amongst your listeners there's probably a handful of theologians. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. 1 Cor 8:1 KJV. So what it's saying there is there's a real danger for theologians like yourself, maybe others that you know, big brain, but actually you may think people people may think what you say they need to hear, but sometimes maybe they just need a little bit of cash, a few dollars, rather than one of your creative thoughts. So here's an example. I mean, maybe we should sort of do some role play here, Matt, so you can get a better understanding. So I don't think you're quite getting it. So let's do role play. I'll be the thought leader on this exercise. Are you okay? You up for it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So let's set the scene. Let's predominantly, I assume you're Americans. Your audience is a lot of Americans, maybe a couple of Canadians. You know, a few Brits, all that stuff. So we'll base it in America. So picture the scene: normal, average American street with sidewalks, not pavements. So you're going to play like an ordinary American. Okay. So somebody like, so you guys have people who live in the flyover states. So you could be one of those people that gets flown over, not the people on the planes flying over, like yourself on a book tour or something. I mean, the people on the ground, you aren't in the planes. So just a normal, down to earth, salt of the earth, ground level, non-flying American. Okay. And I'll play you. Right. So what I'll do is then I'll play you and I'll be you coming up to a normal American person. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, can I have an indulgence? May I ask for permission for an indulgence from you, Matthew?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I feel like when you're doing this kind of work, you don't want to break the, people really get absorbed into stories and you don't want to break it. So I'm going to put on what I can only describe as my best American accent to play you. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't think it's quite your accent, but I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, I think it's best if we get on with it. Yeah.
So do you want to bump into me in the street?
Oh, okay. Hello.
Howdy. My name is Dr. Matt M. Lynch, Ph.D. Would you like a signed copy of my book, Flood and Fury, Old Testament Violence and the Shalom of God? IVP Academic 2023, ISBN 9781410042996. Or would you like $10,000? Yeehaw! So I think, what would you say to that?
I would take the 10,000.
So there, in itself, is an act of charity. You have saved somebody reading your book, and instead they've now got $10,000 in their pocket. I think there couldn't be. I don't think there's a clearer example of what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, I think we'll come back to that in a little bit.
Yeah, I can circle back to that. No problem.
Yeah, it's really helpful to hear about your expanding interests. You've been into science and theology and now charity work. So tell us a little bit more about the kind of charity work that you've been involved with and then how you've reflected on that theologically.
Well, Matthew, everybody needs wells.
Huh.
Do I need to go on?
Yeah. Well, I suspect that you're talking about some of the great charity work happening around drilling wells for people who need clean drinking water. But yeah, I'd love to hear specifically how that's taken shape for you.
So yes, Matthew, I went on the internet and I Googled, so going on the internet, practical theology, for your listeners there, that can be practical theology. Wells are needed. I found out wells are needed. So I was like, I'm not going to go and do it myself, but I'm sure I could pay somebody who's going to dig a well. So I Googled wells. And there was an organization that would, if you paid them $10,000, they will sink wells for you in a little place. It was a place called Texas, or is it Texas?
Texas.
Fine.
No.
So this state called Texas has a huge need for wells. So I got my business partner around, David, and he was able to come up with $10,000. So that was great. So we were able to donate that to this company in Texas, and quick shoot over to theology, inject some theology here. Cheerful giver. That's what I was. £10,000, $10,000. What the list of things one could have done with that is extensive, but instead I thought I will invest this in the future, in the people, in the wells. So I was a cheerful giver, as Sir Paul would say. And I was going to reap what I sowed, but it didn't quite work out as I expected. I just expected to sort of feel good about myself giving that kind of money away, making that decision to not spend that stuff on things that I needed or wanted, coveted. It's just the fact of giving it to those people. But twist in the tail, as they say, on April the 1st, at the end of the financial year, I got a check from Texas, this company in Texas. And I would say this, blow me down with a feather on the nose. It turns out I invested in a company that drills oil wells
Oh,
not water wells.
oh, so did you make money on this?
10 times. They wrote me a check for $100,000.
Oh, that's cool, because then you could take that money and invest it in drilling wells in places that need water, clean drinking water.
That's a good thought, and I think that's something we can circle back to.
Mm-hmm.
What instead I felt was the better angle on this was to return the $10,000, to generously return the initial investment of $10,000 to David, so he could really realize the return on the ROI on his investment.
So he broke even.
A return on investment can just be the glory of having your money back. But anyway, so for me, I was like, well, now I've got £90,000. I've really, really well earned on my behalf. Mm-hmm. So what does one do? You know, and I think that there's some merit. Don't get me wrong, Matt. I do think there's some merit in reinvesting that in wells for the poor. Mm-hmm. But I really thought about this, how long and hard, as you can imagine. And for me, here's an example. So if we look back in history, we're going to go off the Bible a little bit now, but I don't think that, we live in a world called Earth.
Yeah.
And although theology is the most important thing, there is also normal people. Mm-hmm. So there was, I don't know if you've heard of a guy, there was a Dutch, I think he was Dutch painter, or Belgian painter, I don't know, called Van Gogh. He did like flowers and stuff, like fruit bowls and chairs and stuff. So anyway, he made lots of money in the end. His paintings go for ridiculous amounts of money now. So I can't foresee someone whose paintings are worth millions of pounds and dollars, just having stuff like scraps of paper and borrowed paint and stuff. He must have thought, as soon as he started getting it rich when he was selling his paintings, that, you know what, I've got to surround myself in the finest quality oils, paints, canvases, brushes, food, drink, clothes, just to really be able to take his work to the next level. So for me, that's when I think he went to the next level, is when he took some of those money and really made it big. So for me, I thought, you know what, rather than do an outward investment, do an inward investment. I needed things like a watch. There's a brand, and I'm not sure it's a Christian brand or not, but it's called Omega watches. And because, you know, Omega Alpha. Yeah, Omega. Well, Omega, it's a sort of biblical connection. So yeah, they have watches, and I was like, why not? Why not? There's no reason not to. So I bought that, and then I needed, you know, where Mozart had a quill and Van Gogh had a brush, I needed a Mont Blanc pen. In the end of it, cut a long story shorter, within about 2 weeks, I'd probably spent that £90,000 to equip my ministry with the tools of the trade that were going to enable me to take this to the next level.
So what came of that then? So you're surrounding yourself with nice things. You know, a lot of listeners would call that indulgent, but obviously that's not the direction you're going. So what came of all of these purchases?
I think that's the wrong question. I know you've been doing the podcasting malarkey for a while. You know, for me, the right question is, what is an indulgence? One man's indulgence is another man's necessity. Yeah, that's what I think the real question is. It's not the amount it's not spending £90,000 dollars luxury items that is what you need to focus on in this story. It's the end result, which we'll get to shortly. It's the works. Yeah, the investment will be judged on the works.
You know, your ability to sort of pan out and look at the bigger picture of a given situation is the sort of insight that I think brings readers back to your books time and again. So you made these investments in those inner investments. Let's call them, as you put it as well.
Inner investments. Yeah.
So what happened then?
For me, I didn't know I was going to get a letter from the government that's explaining that I owed them a heck of a lot of money in taxes. So anyway, in this country, I don't know about as in America, but in this country, there's quite a high tax level if you earn a decent amount. And some people think that £90,000, a windfall of £90,000 from oil wells should be taxed. So unfortunately, having spent all the money, David only had £10,000 from his investment, and that wasn't going to cover the tax bill. I had to fight for my right to be proved innocent. And so off we go again, back to the court system to become out to win my case. against these taxes. So I got a credit card, and I got I kept getting these letters in the post that said, this credit card has £20,000 on it. So I was like, brilliant. So I took a couple of those out, thinking that would cover the tax bill, paid the tax bill, and thought I was clear.
Yeah.
And then I discovered what they meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was trying to do the right thing. What they meant when they said there's £20,000, it means you could borrow £20,000 on this credit card.
So you thought it was actually like preloaded with money?
Yeah, it was on. It said that you can have £20,000 on this credit card, and I was like, well, why am I not going to have it? I think I'm feeling from you. I'm getting a feeling from you that you're starting to see the systemic problems in the capitalist society that we in the Western world have created. I think that's coming across from your.
Yeah, I think predatory lending. I think
absolutely
just greed. There are all kinds of ways where the system is broken, or at least
I can
damaged in
agree
various
with
ways.
You.
Yeah.
One must take a stand.
So you've had you've shared these stories about your journey with finances. What insights did it bring?
Paint. Orange paint.
Okay.
There are movements around the world at the moment, isn't there, about saving the planet from all the monoxide and the rest of it, the carbon and stuff. People are throwing paint at everyone else. I don't quite understand it, but I think that inspired me to think, you know what? One must stand up for their rights.
So this is like you have these climate activists throwing paint on paintings in the British Museum and so on. So you're thinking like, that's a justice issue. I've got a justice issue.
Absolutely.
What did you do?
I think I've said to you this before. One must take a stand. One must hold their ground. So my most recent court appearance with regarding to the collection of these debts, the podcasters can't see, but I've got 4 fingers in the air and I'm curling them like bunny ears. And I'm saying debts as in, really?
Yeah.
But I had to go to court. I went to court and I felt I needed to make a stand. I needed to say to the court system and the capitalist society that rages through our society that enough is enough. So I was able to get Dave to super glue himself to the emergency exit of the courthouse.
Wow.
As a statement of my need to stand up for myself and make a spectacle of our capitalist society.
Wow, that's really good of him.
The issue was that he superglued himself to the outside of the courthouse. He didn't understand he needed to come into the courthouse itself, come through the court, shouting for justice, and then superglue himself to the door. He just went outside and superglued to the other side of the door. So when I stood up to say, there's no way of being other than being true to oneself, therefore I take a stand, and Dave he wasn't there. So it kind of fell flat.
Miscommunication, I guess.
Yeah, and then I had to go outside and peel him off the emergency exit. But anyway. So again, I had these debts to pay. So Peter pays Paul. So you take from Peter to pay Paul, and you take from Paul to pay John. Yeah. Great. Yeah. And then so I got a loan to cover the credit cards. Yep. And I just feel there's this kind of like ongoing issue around this problem, and I don't think it's anything to do with me. I think there's definitely a system, a systematic system that is created to capture
those who do good. Yeah,
good people, do-gooders.
Yeah, I mean, if you look historically at justice movements, and I know you've studied them I do. Taken notes.
Absolutely.
I think one of the patterns you often see is someone faces an injustice, they take action, and then the problems actually temporarily at least get worse before they get better. And I think what you're seeing, what you're describing in your story is that movement of recognizing a problem, setting out to address it, with Dave in hand. And then in the process, the problem temporarily seems to get larger and larger. And I know for some listeners, they might get the impression this is a story of one man spiraling financial problems, but it's not, is it?
The world has stood up to the bankers, stood up to the capitalism, and they've said no more. We have found a way to make ourselves financially free and get rid of our debts and stuff. So I've embraced that, and I have become what they call a crypto bro. So I've gone into crypto to solve my issues.
And how does that solve your issues? Like,
well, it hasn't yet, but what I've done is I've created a crypto coin with Dave. Again, Dave now was flush with money because he just made a clean $10,000 from the profits of the oil stuff. So he was kind enough to give me half of that to start a crypto coin, which we've called Saphira Coin, Ax5:1. So me and Dave, we see ourselves, well, he doesn't, but I see ourselves as Ananias and Sapphira. I think there's the strong characters in the Bible. It's a good way of sort of really showing that this is an upward trajectory. Of course, right now we're in a trough and we are waiting for our bounce. But I feel like I've lined up my blockchains. People have got FOMO about this.
And just for our listeners, was the link to Ananias and Sapphira because they sold the proceeds of their property and brought it to the apostles? Is that the thinking of like the investment and investing in the kingdom? Yeah.
Right. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Do you think some people will see that as a problem, potential problem, seeing as Ananias and Sapphira were struck dead for what they did subsequently?
No. Okay. No. It's all good.
So,
it's all good.
All right. Well, let's move on to talk
something
about
else.
Yeah.
Great.
Let's talk about the theology in the Bible that's undergirding your new economic vision. So one of the key concepts you talk about in part 2 of your book, after sort of laying some of the groundwork, is, well, first of all, a kind of intro to the economy, but also this idea of the cheerful taker. And the way that shapes a new economics. And I think people, if there's one thing in our culture people are hungry for, it's a new way of thinking about their relationship with money, the economy more broadly, and how those things can be informed biblically and not just culturally. So take us through that. Take it away.
Very simple. 3 parts. I'll throw this out there and we'll circle back to it later. Okay. Step 1, decapitalize.
Okay.
Step 2, it's got to be from the ground up. Step 3, not top down.
Okay. That's helpful.
Okay. I feel like I'm going to have to expand. Again, theologians, not sure you deal with a lot of money with your industry. So economics, for you Americans, economics 101. We need to go back to the question, what is money? Money is a symbol of exchange for transactions. Okay, we have that. That's great. Then on top of that, we have what some people call the economy, which is a system where people produce, trade, and consume goods and services, encompassing the activities related to production, consumption, the trade within a specific area, whether it's a nation, a region, or a community. So that's that. And then on top of that, we have people. So it's money, economy, and then people. The financial trinity, if you will.
What I hear you getting at is something that's greater than the sum of its parts. And so you've defined the parts, and then there's the sum and like how they come together. So how have you then advanced the way we think biblically and theologically about the economy?
So I think for me, it's really straightforward. Okay.
So maybe elaborate on that point.
So you've got money at the top, economy, and then people. So that's how a trinity works. It's 3 points, but it's the same thing. So it's like it's within the same thing. So I think about a triangle. It's easier to remember.
You talk in your book about your thinking being untainted by some of the lingo, the trends of postmodern thinking. What things are you avoiding, and what things are you embracing? So
I think how long are we in now? About half an hour into this, and that's a first decent question. Forgive me for saying that, to be honest. Good question. I think for me, as all Christians can be, we can get caught up. We can get caught up in the postmodern tricks of our culture. There's things that fly. There's financial terminology that flies around. Things like financial freedom, independence, balanced budgets, careful stewardship, all that kind of stuff. And for me, that is straight out of the Enlightenment, which is obviously bad, or what I like to call the Endarkenment. Those terms originate in the 19th century economic theory. So some stuff you've got to put down.
I don't want to like drag private matters into the public. You talked about sort of how you and Dave, sharpen each other and shape each other's thinking on this kind of thing. So in what ways has your thinking come out of those conversations, that back and forth, the iron sharpening iron, as you've engaged with him on the economy?
Oi, you're fishing for, aren't you, Matt? For a bit of you're fishing for a bit of a mea culpa, I think's coming on, don't you?
Well, not necessarily. Well, yeah. I mean, take it.
Okay, so mea culpa time. We have a mea culpa every time, don't we? And this is our time now.
No.
So, after the court case, after everything else as well, I did have some debts to sort out, and there was a breakdown in the relationship between me and Dave. Don't like to talk about it. I think it's very private. Dave certainly doesn't want to talk about it. So yeah, here we go. So Dave complained because I put up "Debt collectors can go park off a cliff" sign on the Centre of Excellence front door, and he thought that was a bit not even just aggressive, not even passive aggressive, just aggressive, and it would get us off on the wrong foot with the debt collectors. Things escalated. I don't like escalation because that's a mechanical term. I like spiraled upward, more of a biological term. When in fact, a debt collector that we've gotten to know, Finance Frank, as I call him, came for a visit. He was walking around the Centre of Excellence with his notepad, and I just felt I needed to step out. That's not what I wanted. So, taking inspiration, I put some sand in his gas tank and a banana in his tailpipe, parked his car in neutral, handbrake off, and just thought, you know what, I'll give it a little shove. Just a little shove. Not off a cliff, that's extreme, just a little shove. Unfortunately, it went past the Centre of Excellence, through the fence, into the goat's pen, at which point the goats, as goats do, took a shining to the car and started chewing it off. So I felt this is a disaster. So I pushed it even further to get it through the goat's pen. It then went to the other side of the goat's pen, down the hill into a lake. So that in itself, I don't really see a problem with that in itself. But Dave had a trainee intern in the car, which I didn't. Sorry, Finance Frank had an intern in the car that went to the goat's pen, went to the fence, went down the hill, went into the lake.
I bet he was
injured. Not injured, just a bit of a shock. But as you can imagine, the systematic system that we exist in felt that was probably not the most ideal way to deal with a debt collector visiting your house. Right. So I think all your listeners can take away from that, apart from obviously that I had to go back to court and the rest of it, and I now have a restraining order against. I can't go within 250 feet of a debt collector in the UK and Channel Islands. It just screams that this system is broken. That there is a systematic system that is based on the trinity of the money, people, the economy, money, the economy. That sacrosanct trinity triangle that underpins the systematic system we have is just clearly broken.
So what you're saying is that, like, what happened with this debt collector and his intern is really, if you look at that as the problem, what you're looking at is the symptom and not the underlying problem. And I really appreciate that about your work, is your ability to look at systemic brokenness and to get under it. And to me, that's one of the key roles of theology, is to look at surface problems with different eyes than our culture is used to looking at them with.
Agreed.
And so we might look at an issue like violence in our culture or oppression, and just see it in purely human terms, but to get under it. And so your thinking then takes you about this situation and about others, be it debts or legal fees or court cases, sends you back to Scripture, which I love in your thinking. Take us there.
We have to go to the heart, the center, the navel, if you will, of my argument. Let's navel gaze for just but a moment. So where do we land? Where does the navel be in the Bible? Pauline theology. So where do we go? 2:9:7 NIV. That's where we go. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Do you know what I get from that? Theologically, like a laser beam, we should be cheerful takers. I think God likes a cheerful taker. Yeah. If someone gives you something, be happy about it.
Right.
Well, apart from maybe a disease or something.
Sure.
But like a monetary gift. Let's keep it in terms of monetary. Yeah. So a monetary gift should be given happily. So if someone gives you 25 grand, no strings attached, gift, be a cheerful taker.
That's a side of that verse I guess I hadn't thought about.
And this is what and I don't like to blow my own trumpet, but this is what I think people need to invert their convex lenses. because people don't see it. Everybody comes away thinking, if I should give to the poor compassionately, not reluctantly, joyfully, and generously.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what it says.
Huh.
No. I think it's about Cheerful Taker. You got to flip it around sometimes.
So with those...
like this, for example, so commanding, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, if we turn to 1 Tim.6:17-18 NIV, you're looking at command now. Command those who are rich in the present world not to be arrogant nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. So for me, that's that directly speaks to the time of like...
It's the generosity, right?
Yeah. So I think it took a while for Dave to understand that that's kind of where the Bible leads us to, and that's why he was able to part with his money to me as for the investments and so forth. So I think I think that, unlike the first one, which you have to invert on its head, this one's just straightforward.
So one of the things you talk about in your book is how that emphasizes the need to command, because it says it twice: command those who are rich, command them to do good. Like, what does that look like?
Well, I think it's just a way of being able to justify, if someone's around you and they're loaded, get some of their get a wad of their cash. I think 1 Tim knew what he was talking about. So so cheerful taker, cheerful giver, inversed induction, simple. Commanding lays us straight down the line, does what it says in the tin. Another example is no kinds of evil. Let's really delve into this. Go back to 1 Tim, see what he's got to say. So 1 Tim.6:10 NIV clearly states, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. 1 Tim 6:10 NIV. Not all kinds of evil. So what you could list off all the evil things that money gives us, but with a few workarounds. And here's an example: rather than love money, I think it's okay to highly adore money.
It's different.
Or the things you've bought with money. See how that's just clear as day. So that's like sanding down the truth. So you get the biblical truth, you sand it down till it's acceptable, and then you can go forth.
Do you see any risks in that of in the process of sanding it down, ignoring what it really is trying to do?
No, because you're not destroying it. You're not taking a hammer to it. You're just sanding it down. So I don't see any problem at all.
So these 3 pillars, then, you've got the cheerful taker, the need to command others, the need to, the emphasis on not all kinds of evil, and the fact that there are workarounds. Would you say that is the sum of your new economic theory?
No.
Okay.
There's more.
Okay, so why don't you take us, as we get to the end of the episode here, it'd be great if you walk us through just some of the key highlights, the points you've given us, this sort of rich biblical substructure.
Door! Sorry, go on.
You've given us this rich biblical substructure that undergirds your thinking. You've got this sort of experiential stuff on top of that you've talked about, stories, things that have happened to you, the way you've approached them and kind of wisely navigated them. Bring us into the theory now. Let's go into that realm. And some of the key concepts that people can take away as nuggets of truth drawn from the fires of the Center for Excellence and really your head.
I will drop a trail of nuggets now for your listeners, because I know some of them probably aren't that advanced in stuff. So I'll try and keep it simple.
Yeah.
The most forwarded and biblical approach to economics that is scientific and not caught up in the postmodernistic rage. My economic theory is not that.
Yeah.
My economic theory is not rooted in careful experimentation that I carry out regularly with my credit cards, loans, debts, and so forth.
Wait, it's not rooted in those things?
No.
Okay.
Oh, is it? Okay. 3, it's non-anthropic. Instead, it places the whole world, Earth, at the center of the economy.
Okay.
It also features a new field of Pauline scholarly theology interpretation. It features attention to quantum features of Paul's economic thinking. One of the most often overlooked features of Paul's teaching requires, as I've mentioned before, donning the spacesuit of faith. I believe that Paul's economic thinking is evident once we realize that they contain coded quantum information that only becomes apparent when observed from multi-dimensional, simultaneously dimensions.
Could you help our listeners with that idea of the quantum features of Paul's economic thinking? Because that's going to be a new concept for some people. What exactly do you mean there?
Now that I've experienced the world of capitalization, I understand what you're doing here. That nugget is a soupçon, but a taster. If people would like to know more, they should buy my book.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to draw people in. People like a little quantum mechanics or quantum physics. Great. So I interrupted you. You're going through the key features. What else do we have here?
The feast is full, and the dessert is this. My economic theories avoids the constraints of linear thinking and the academic constraints that so many economic theories are obsessed with. We're going to break the mold. We need to establish new theories.
Yeah, new molds. Yeah, there's that. There's that.
I don't think I could be clearer, Matthew.
Right. What I think you've done is given listeners, first of all, you've shared your heart, brought us into the events happening in your life and Dave's life, out of which, let's call that the well, out of which comes the thinking.
Yep. Nice.
Provided us with a Bible that undergirds it, with theology, key theological concepts, economic theory. I mean, this has been a tour de force. And I would just encourage listeners to go buy this book, buy 20 copies and do a reading group at your church or with your neighborhood. Buy 25 copies, hand them out to colleagues. What are some other ways that people can engage what you're doing?
So I'm trying to set up a GoFundMe so that people can donate to the Sheblazm Rescue Fund, just to see if that's a thing. And again, I am in no way trying to insinuate the connection between my GoFundMe page and the Cheerful Giver stuff. I think people have commented, and I don't think that's appropriate. I am just opening up the possibility of charity. If anybody willing to do that. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. So check out his book. Again, the title of it, forthcoming. It's The Cheerful Taker, A New Economics for Pauline Christians in a Changing World, published by Sheblazm Press, 2025. Dr. Sheblazm, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
You've been listening to OnScript, delectable conversations on scripture and theology. If this episode has brought you inner peace or lit your biblical fire, please consider a small donation of just $2 or $5 per month. Information on how to donate can be found at onscript.study/donate.